Okay, we're going to look at GE Historian 2022 and the installation of SIM 5, which is currently the most recent SIM as of February 2024. Let's take a look at Historian Administrator, make sure that the Historian is running currently, and it is. Let's take a look at Configuration Hub and we'll see that we're connected to the Historian. So what we'll want to do now is shut down the Historian Administrator. That's very important to do before SIM installation. And download the current GE SIM, which again in this case is SIM 5 for Historian version 2022. Once that's downloaded, we'll need to go to the Downloads folder, right-click on the zip file and go to Properties. And the purpose of this is to unblock that file. Make sure that Windows knows it's a proper file that was downloaded from the internet. And we'll go ahead and extract that once it's unblocked. With it extracted, we'll want to make sure that we've got the services stopped. Any Historian service should be stopped at this point. The administrator should also be stopped at this point. And once we have it stopped, we can go ahead and right-click the install for the SIM and run that as administrator. Now, during the install process, we'll want to make sure this is unchecked. We're not going to start the services after the SIM installation. And the reason for that is we will have to reinstall certificates for each Historian service after this install is completed. Now that is important because if you already have Historian installed, which you do when you're placing SIMs on the system, that certificate will need to be reinstalled. Now we can see here that installation failed. So let's go ahead and view the log files to see what happened. The smaller of the two log files is not important, so we'll go ahead and look at the larger log file and see what happened. Okay, so we can see here it says, please close application Historian admin. So that means while we did close the administrator, it probably left itself running. So let's take a look at processes and task manager and see if we can find it. There it is. Let's go ahead and end the task. And now that we've got that task ended, we can really just go ahead and reinstall that SIM. Perfect. The GE SIM was installed. So now we have to go through the additional steps of creating certificates for each one of the GE services. But we can see here with a refresh that SIM 5 was installed. So we do have a successful installation, and we can see it in Programs and Features in Windows. So now let's go ahead and open Command Prompt. We need to do that as administrator. That's important. And we'll go to the Program Files, Prophecy, Prophecy Historian, and MTLS directory. Let's take a look at what's in there. And what we're going to use is this create root certificate. And with the parameters 1, a password. In this case, we're just going to use this password. Makes it easy. And then we'll set it for 3,650 days, which is 10 years. And we'll let that run and create the certificates. Okay. Certificates have been created, And we'll see that in the folder. In fact, the same folder that we just went to with the command prompt. So prophecy, prophecy historian, MTLS, and we've got the ICA_key.cer and .pfx. So we'll want to right click on or double click on the CER file and install that certificate. So we click install certificate, we select local machine and hit next. And now we're going to place that certificate in the trusted root certification authorities. It's always got to be in that specific location. Let's hit OK. Hit next. And finish. Now that specific certificate was created and installed. But now we need to close out the command prompt. And we'll open a new one the same way we did before. Right click, run as administrator. And we'll even go back to the same directory. So we'll change directories back to program files, prophecy, prophecy historian, and MTLS. Okay, now we're going to run a different command, and that is MTLS certificate install.exe with the same parameters. We'll do a 1 and a password. Now we can see that we created the certificates, and now we've got quite a few more certificates in this location. So we can see that we now have Data Archiver, Client Manager, Config Manager, and Diagnostics Manager. So we'll go ahead and install each one of these certificates. First, Data Archiver. Again, we're going to put it in the Trusted Root certification location. Once that import is successful, we'll go on to the next, which would be the Client Manager. Same process over and over. Install the certificate to the local machine. Select the proper location, Trusted Root, and import. A relatively simple process, but it takes a little bit of time. And if you're in a rush to get a historian back up and running, it can feel like it's going really slowly. The last one, Diagnostic Manager. And import was successful. So now we have all of the GE certificates for each Windows service installed. And there's a couple of different things we could do. We could go ahead and restart the GE services. However, easier is to go ahead and reboot this machine and let all the GE services start up by themselves. Now, that's highly dependent on what else is on your server. If you're running some other process that needs to be running this whole time, you can't just shut down and reboot a historian server. But in this case, the historian is the only thing on this system. Let's take a look at the services. Might have to refresh a couple times to see if the historian service have started. You can see that it is starting at the moment. Let's go ahead and do a couple refreshes and see if those historian services start running fully. There we go. Okay. Historian is running, and we can hit OK on the administrator, and we can see that we indeed have the historian running. We are seeing report rates, and on the only tag that we have on this system, we can right click, look at the last 10 values, and we can see there The time is the current time, and we have data on the historian tag.